Hello, dear listener, and welcome to the third episode of Doctor Who, the complete review. Coming to you live from Media City, UK with me, Ryan Croughan, and also live from...
Blackpool, it's me, Josh Dixon. How are you doing?
I hope they're all doing okay.
You never know.
I mean, they might not. Blackpool, so you've changed location.
I have, because my hometown originally is Blackpool, Ryan.
As if
die.
Yeah, I didn't know that, did I? Shockingly, no, he's from Blackpool. God, how do you live? How do you sleep at night?
I don't know. The sound of gunfire just sort of echoes sadly past. And...
We're probably offending people from Blackpool at the moment, aren't we?
That's true. I actually live in a village called Thornton Cleveland, so that wasn't even...
Anyway, we're going to discuss today the third episode of Doctor Who called The Forest of Fear. Now, Josh, were you scared? Were you fearful?
No, I just felt very, very grim. It was very bleak.
Yeah, I to put it in context, after I watched the episode, I'd just done an assignment the previous night, so I wasn't feeling in the best of moods. Anyway, and then I watched this episode, and I sent you a message, didn't I, Josh? A sort of warning, a sort of cry for help.
You did, and it was that this was the darkest episode you had ever had to sit through.
Yeah, and my point was, and I'll start this off because I think it's probably. It's either a good thing or a bad thing, and we'll see what we think as the discussion goes on. But I think this is probably the bleakest. Bleak is the word, yeah. Dark's probably not a word, but bleak and grim. The most bleak and grim episode of Doctor Who ever broadcast. And I know that's a big statement to make, only 3 episodes in. But comparing what we know what's to come, and mainly because there is not one single moment in this of light relief.
I don't know. You could just look at it as a massive family-friendly knockabout comedy if you really wanted.
In what way?
You can't. That was banter.
Oh, it was banter. Oh, sorry, the banter completely overwhelmed. No, what did you think of it? What did you think of the? Let's just get it out right. The lack of humour, because I know you've said on this podcast your favourite Doctor is Patrick Troughton, and he mixes those two styles. Whereas here it is all. And also probably not helped by the fact the Doctor's character is an utter, what do we say, while keeping it PG?
Willy.
He's a Willy. He's just really quite nasty in this one. What did you think?
I mean, I enjoyed it. Not completely, but I enjoyed it. You can't put comic relief in that episode. I really don't see at what point there could have been something that was like, haha, that's banter.
Yeah,
there are moments where, like in the beginning, the Doctor's like, we must have hope. And that, in a sense, has some optimism. No, it's not funny, but at least it's not all, we're going to die, we're going to die, we're going to die.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's not a bad thing that the episode doesn't have any humour. It's just probably the most, I don't know, I wouldn't say most humourless, because there's a heart to it. And I wouldn't be watching, and I don't think it'd be Doctor Who if it was just grim, oh, this is horrible, cavemen being nasty people, and they're not going to get out. There's a heart to it.
Absolutely, and that's what keeps you watching.
Yeah. Were you going to say anything else? I don't know.
I mean, there is heart, despite the fact that the Doctor is, like we said, a massive willy. So it's.
Does William Hartnell have a massive willy?
Find out next week.
Basically, I think what made this episode. As I said, it is grim. It is definitely very, very, very nasty. It's a hard watch. Yeah,
it is. And it was. We were discussing this last week. Is this? What kind of kids show is this? And
yeah.
It's not me saying that like, oh, it's abominable what they used to show children. It's literally just. It's not very kid-like, is it? It's just very, very grim.
Should we keep saying this is grim? What would you say is? Makes it qualify as that. I'd probably say just the utter desperation and fear. Everyone, literally every line is either delivered by our main characters either panting or terrified or on the point of hysterics. It's kind of the tension is there throughout. The tension never drops, and in a way, that's what makes it such a good piece of drama. There's no moments to pull you out of it to go, oh, here's a cheeky bit of hijinks. It's just constant. It's not methodical. It's just boom, 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 one thing after the another, and it gets worse as it goes along.
And that too, mixed with the world that we're in, with sort of really desolate wind and the sort of ominous percussion that keeps coming in every time there's a chase scene, and the fact that even the imagery of people in the cave sort of shivering as they try to sleep, and the skeleton. The first thing you see is a skeleton.
Yeah,
It is just relentlessly grim.
it sets the tone. I thought like that first scene where they're all sitting down, how very, very, very simple it is. It is just people lying down with a bit of muck on them and some furs. But it's really like it's this really poor conditions. It's this idea of squalor and that there's a reality to it all. Not for one moment. And I think this is what's interesting about '60s Doctor Who, especially very, very early '60s Doctor Who. What were sort of these first few episodes is the reality to it all. Whether that's in the visuals, as in it looks real, it looks grim, it looks horrible. Maybe apart from the reality of that hog's head, but we'll come on to that later. And the characters, the reactions of I think that the reason this story works is it sets up the core morals of Doctor Who with the whole. You mentioned it already, that there's a little scene where the Doctor talks about always having hope. But it sets up that traveling in time it can actually be pretty nasty, but you've still got to have hope. You've still got to approach things in a positive way. But it's ironic we can get that viewpoint through without actually having a Doctor who's all that nice.
No, although what I will say is his first line, and in fact the first line of dialogue in the entire episode is "This is all my fault."
Yeah, because we've been talking. Go on.
Coming from the Doctor, at least at this stage, is very unexpected. He's admitting he's wrong, and for the stubborn old man, that was very surprising. Perhaps, maybe he's a nice guy. He goes back into it when he doesn't get his own way, but just there for a minute is a nice little glimmer of, he's not that bad.
Yeah, he's not. I think we'll talk about the Doctor first, because he's, by far, I think, it's all about this episode. If I was to say one thing that engaged me the most throughout, it's the tension, and part of that is through the combative nature between Ian and the Doctor.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, what was that response for?
I was going to make a point, but we'll get to that.
Oh, will we? Okay. Well, yeah. I was going to... Are you sure you don't want to make it now?
All right, a lot of that, though, and this is a completely different point, but it leads on from the same tension, is the way that a lot of the times their arguments are resolved by, I don't want to do this. Are you going to let the women do it? No, for God's sake, you've got me there.
Yeah,
it's not the...
I wrote this down, and I put... Well, I guess this is Ian's character. We were talking about the Doctor, but we'll just go on a quick tangent to Ian and then back to the Doctor. So this is madness. It's unplanned. I've got lots of notes, so that's why we keep pausing and going, what should we talk about? Because I've got a good 5 pages here of stuff I want to talk about. So we could be here for however long, God, it's going to get mad. But no, Ian, is it... I'm going to pose this question to you, then we'll get back to the Doctor. Ian's character in this, is it the sort of roaming... gallantry of a male lead? He's the gallant knight fighting, that sort of overly masculine protector figure, or is it just sexist? Or would you say it's realistic? Because when they're there like, protecting ourselves, I can't see Susan really protecting the whole party against a bunch of butch cavemen.
I think it's not deliberately sexist, but it is sexist just because of the time.
Yeah. I mean,
it's realistic for those characters. Ian, the man who's from 1960s London, thrown into that world. There isn't a chance in hell that in that situation he'd be like, "Yes, actually, Barbara, I think you can take the cavemen yourself. I'm just going to." It wouldn't happen. But the way the episode approaches it, I guess, isn't the best.
I don't know. I didn't really have a problem with it, considering that they've never been in a situation like this before. Barbara, if you ask Barbara, in the state that she is in the episode, where she pretty much loses it, and she's been all wide-eyed and wonder throughout, like, oh, wow, oh, yeah, what if we could believe it, Ian? And now, perfectly, almost accurately, her character just goes, you know what, you were loving it. Pfft, no, you're not. This is awful. Have hysteria. Go insane. You hate it. Which is, I think, only apt, and you wouldn't really want to say... I understand there. Both Barbara and Susan have had the worst of it. They are hating it. Ian is just only functioning really by saying, no, I've got to be the strong one, because all the others have either lost it or they're like the Doctor, being totally selfish. So I see it as a nice bit of Ian's character. He sees him, he takes it upon himself to be the male lead, which brings me on to the fact that all this battle between him and the Doctor is sort of the battle for screen time, the battle of who can be the hero in this, as it were.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't deem it. If it was, the women can't do anything, but then it's not that, because when Tsar in this episode gets severely hurt, he demands on Barbara to sort of, maybe even to distract her from the fear of it all, because she's clearly going a bit mad. Like, go and get some water. Go and help me out. They work together, and of course, as they go on in the series, they work together even more. So I'm gonna come hard down on you with an iron fist and say, I do not think that is sexist. I think it's a bit of character. And if anyone, I'd say, who says it in a more sexist manner, I'd probably say it should be the Doctor, because at this stage, well, he's a bit of an idiot.
Okay, I have heard your argument.
Do you agree with my argument?
Listen to it, and I agree.
There we go. So we've come to a conclusion. Back to the
full circle.
Full circle, eh? I don't get that reference. Well, we shouldn't get it yet. Not for another, I don't know, 500 weeks.
But I'm going to make that joke again in 500 weeks, and boy, is it going to be worth it.
I don't even know. I don't even know what year that'll be. The Doctor's character in this. What did you think of him? Because I think he's pretty. I don't know. He's pretty childlike. He's pretty petulant. He's like
very stubborn, as Ian says. It's very difficult, quite uncomfortable, watching him be like, "No, we're not helping him. Let's carry on going back to the ship." That is just not like him at all. And when he picks up the rock, I'm kind of like, was he actually going to kill him?
You see this, and I've just wrote here on my notes. I haven't put much note on that because it's sort of an infamous scene in Doctor Who, known as sort of like the rock scene, which is the ultimate in when people say, "Oh, the Doctor's character doesn't develop. He's like good from day one." He clearly isn't. He's literally this really tired old man who's just like, I just want to get out. And he's right. He looks down on everybody else, doesn't he? Ian says a line where he goes, or is it Barbara? One of the two.
I think it's Barbara. Yeah, it's Barbara.
Yeah, Barbara makes a line, and it's true. He literally looks down on everybody else, and yet he even admits, "Oh, I'm tired. I can't do anything myself." He's a hypocrite, and also he calls all the cavemen savages, which, does that make him a bit, like, I don't know, racist? I'm not sure. He's just really horrible to everybody. It is number one and only number one on his mind.
I mean, to an extent, Susan, but yeah, only his interest and the interest of his immediate family.
No, it's definitely true, but I think this is why we needed an episode like this, and perhaps why we needed one so early on. We were saying it's not very fun. There's not much wonder in it, which we've sort of had for the previous, especially in Unearthly Child. It was all a bit weird and wow, look at all this. We can travel in time. Here, it is right. Well, we've seen the Doctor last week. We mentioned, when he got up off the rock and started trying to protect himself and the others from the cavemen.
Yes.
And we said that was a key point, and I think it was good that we identified that. That's a key point in his character. This week flips it back, because basically they are in trouble, they're in peril, and he just becomes horrible. I don't think he means to be. I just think he doesn't know what to do, because I don't think he's been in situations like this before, and he definitely doesn't want to.
He's yet to discover compassion for anyone other than Susan.
Yeah.
Which is strange.
Why is that strange?
Just because of how we know him. You think of the Doctor, you think of a hero, he's yet to actually show that. For the audience who are watching it for the first time, not weird at all, but for me, I just find it a bit strange to watch and unfamiliar.
Is that odd, though, in hindsight, or do you think watching it at the time it would make perfect sense?
At the time, it would make perfect sense.
Like, it makes sense as a story now, but once again, we're letting our sort of hindsight of what's to come make it... Does it improve it? Does it improve the Doctor's character scene like this? Does it improve it now we know what happens?
Yeah, adds another dimension because when you get to the modern series, there's like YouTube video compilations of all of this where they go with sort of like the lonely god and is a dark man and angsty music that really doesn't fit starts to play as you have a montage of him being angry or crying or shooting people. It's kind of like not really that dark though, is he? Apart from massacring loads of people with a push of a button and all of that. But it's mainly you don't actually see it in the episode. Oh, that was a Time War reference. You don't actually see it in the episode, but now you're going back to his roots and you're sort of saying, yeah, he is capable of dark things if he's under the right circumstances.
Yeah, it's all heavily circumstantial in this. But I will point to one line, which I think, once again, when I mentioned at the start about it having the core moral of Doctor Who to it, which is why I think this story is kind of underrated. We needed to push them into extreme circumstances to see this side of the Doctor and his companions come out, is the line, you probably know when I say it, fear makes companions of all of us.
Oh.
Which is a really good line, so good that Clara even quoted it in Listen.
And she said it very well, to be fair.
Yeah, and it's a really good line, and that's what I mean about when you say the Doctor doesn't know compassion. He surely understands it, because he understands what can happen.
I'm not denying that he doesn't understand compassion. I'm just saying that he doesn't seem to act upon it and identify it yet.
True. Or do you think when he calls the cavemen savages, he does back it up with a point? So it's not like we're saying, oh, he's just a horrible person to everyone. There's always circumstance to it. There's always reason to it. Because he says,
Yeah. It's a fear of death, and yeah. But at the same time, the Doctor, we all know and love, would never sort of look at a dying man and be like, now we need to survive. Let's get the fudge out of it.
yeah. Although to mention his backup point, which I think is a really interesting part of the episode, is that the cavemen, because they're so underdeveloped at a point in time, they do not understand or recognise human emotions. So to back that up, basically by giving that point, it's like, well, they're not going to understand what we're doing. Why are we bothering? Let's just go. Which, to an extent, you can agree with. I don't know.
You can. You definitely can, but I still think it goes against his code of if we travel somewhere, regardless of how developed this civilization is, everyone is worth saving.
The thing is, though, once again, that is all hindsight. We do not know that yet.
Yeah.
So we've got to kind of block that and just focus on the story itself. One thing I will say about this episode is to bring back the titular forest section. Did you think that was? I'd probably say that's the most tense part of the episode. That's the bit where you're on the edge of your seat. What did you think of all that stuff? Where that Tsar gets his. Should we give him a brief synopsis? We're 18 minutes in, and we've not told them what happens in the episode.
That is true, actually.
Go on. Give us a brief overview.
So basically, the Doctor and his friends are trapped in the Cave of Skulls, which coincidentally was the name of the last episode. The old woman comes in with a knife. You think, OMG, sister, is she going to kill them? And, Tsar and his wife wake up and, oh my God, the old woman's talking to him. And the audience like, oh my God, she's going to kill him. But actually she sets them free, going, there cannot be fire here, we won't have it. So like, okay, we've got to run. They run out. Tsar and his wife come in. They shank the old woman, be like, ha, fuck you. Knock her to the ground. Everyone's running away. Cal discovers the old woman lying on the ground. He's like, OMG, they're off to take away my fire. He turns the crowd against them whilst they're on the run. Also, whilst the Doctor and everyone's on the run, they look behind them, see Tsar get attacked by, was it a bear?
It's a bear it's a bear that eats plastic hogs.
Yes, it's a bear that eats... Very funny. Bear that eats plastic hogs. Attacks Tsar, even though he's not a plastic hog. Tsar's there bleeding. The Doctor's like, we shouldn't help them, we have to run. Even Ian is a little bit like, we have to leave them. It's actually Barbara who's like, no, we can't do that. We've got to go save him. So they do. Cal turns the tribe against them, back at the cave. Then eventually they're taking Tsar to the TARDIS, when suddenly I just want to point out they got there very quickly.
They did.
Cal and the tribe are all there ready to kill the fuckers.
And that is the episode, pretty much. So if you've not seen it, well, you know what happens now.
Could just say warning contains spoilers. And
Yeah, well,
ourselves.
I don't understand about saying about spoilers, because this episode has now been out for 53 years. So
Yeah,
if you've not seen it, then poo to you.
that was savage, Ryan.
What that was. What I was going to say was, there's between the Doctor and Ian, to go back to that point, to get back onto the sort of main body of it. The parallels between that and Zar and Cal, and I thought it's quite interesting that the main dynamics. Cave of Skulls, it's Zar versus Cal is your main drive. Here, I'd argue that the main drive is Ian and the Doctor's sort of bickering, and it is almost like this weird alpha male battle. And in both cases, here, her, the female caveman, to Zar, is sort of the aid, the consciousness to this man who only seems to think, this full-blooded, heavy man. And she actually is probably the more intelligent of the two, because there's a couple of times in this episode where he's talking rubbish, and she's like, no, this has happened. He's like, all right. And arguably, the same happens here with Ian, with him, no, we got to go, and letting his daring side think for the moment. And Barbara's like, no, we've got to help people. And I think that dynamic between the two is very different. And to get forward my point in a more streamlined way, whatever age you come from, even the Doctor's rubbish about, they're very undeveloped, both sides, when put in these terrifying circumstances, have the same emotional outcome, especially between genders.
Yeah. At one point, I'd also like to point out, the Doctor's like, they can't understand their emotions, they're all savages. There's actually quite a heartwarming moment.
Go on.
Where Cal's like, they do not kill. Even whether or not they understand, why, they grasp the fact that these people aren't going to harm them and are trying to help them.
Yeah.
And therefore don't attack back. And surely that must show to them that there is some possibility for emotional development and empathy, and something other than the savagery the Doctor accuses them of. And to be fair, they are quite savage. They will just kill at will. They're very gullible. All you have to do is go fire, and everyone's like, oh yeah, I want to. But when they realise they're not under threat, and for whatever reason they're trying to be helped, they are less hostile and suspicious. And I think that is what the philosophy of Doctor Who is, as they're visiting all of these planets. In a Earth that has previously had things like colonisation and quite brutal savagery towards the unknown. I think the reason why it's quite troubling to see the Doctor just refer to like the cavemen as they can't be helped is because it goes against the sort of comforting attitude and stance that the show takes on.
Yeah.
And that was a moment where I'm glad that happened, because it sort of proves that the Doctor wrong.
Yeah, and I definitely think that whole thing, and I've put it here near the end of the episode. But this is the episode where we see, and I think we'll move on to him next. Actually, we definitely see Cal is now most certainly the villain, because Zar, in that one moment, we realise he can learn.
Yes.
And last week I said to you, who is the villain? And you said Cal.
Yeah.
And you were absolutely right, because I didn't remember this moment, but seeing that, I know, right, that defines it. That's there. That's in black and white, no pun intended. It's Zar learns. He appreciates. Whether that's going to stay, well, we'll find out next week. But Cal, this is why I came across it thinking it was so grim, and it is Cal's character. He's not in it for most of it, and he pops up, kills the old woman, and then basically lies to the whole tribe, saying like, "Oh yeah," and it's one of the most odd, weird like lines, which is weird, but it's a frightening line. I'll read it to you now. It must have. This is somewhat like the mob mentality saying it to him. It must have been as your eyes said it was. He literally just says something and everyone goes, "Oh well, if you say it is."
That's what I mean by the gullible crowd, and it's horrible. They all turn against every character that you like because of one man goes, "Well, I didn't see what happened, but I can take a good guess."
Yeah, but
So, yeah, it's obviously the truth.
and that's what I think makes Cal such a. I genuinely hate him now. Whereas before I was like, oh no, he just wants to collect the meat. As we, whereas now he's out and out horrible. That scene, like the old woman. Let's just give a bit of consideration to her. She goes through a lot this episode.
She does.
She's thrown on the floor twice. I mean, come on. She's going to need some knee pads soon.
She's no spring chicken.
She isn't. And that's what I think is very interesting. How we deliberately see almost pretty much the same shot. She's put in peril by both sort of the two main leads of the tribe. Zar, I thought. Did you think Zar killed her when he pushed her onto the floor?
Yeah, when he pushed her, I thought she was dead.
Yeah, because it's established from the very start she is weak. She is like last legs weak, and I thought, oh my god, he's killed her. That is the big turning point, but he hadn't, and it almost shows. Oh well, he just wanted her out of the way then to carry on. But it's the scene, and it's so wonderfully done. It's a very simple beat, but it's the moment where Cal pulls out the little knife. We don't hold on it or anything. He just pulls it out. Boom, next shot, and it's like, oh right, oh that happened. Oh god. It's grim, and once again he justifies it by saying a comment about how like I see things when I sleep. So it's almost like reading into that line. Oh, it's like he sees it when he sleep, but when you sleep, all your dreams are false. So he could be talking utter rubbish.
Oh my days, bruv, yes, you have got a great point there. Because what you see when you dream is not the same as what you see when you're not dreaming.
Exactly, but do they know that?
No.
Exactly. But no, what did you think of Callie Pops in this episode?
I mean, he was disgusting. He is just a villain. He kills the old woman and essentially blames that on Zar.
Yeah, it is the ultimate in. We were saying last week. I was saying it was like a political power struggle. It's now not a political power struggle. It's literally just a bare hand-on-hand combat. I'm gonna lie. I'm gonna cheat. I'm gonna accuse somebody of murder. It has gone into just this. In very few scenes as well, and I said about this I said about this last week. The best thing about classic Doctor Who is the economy of the writing, but it doesn't scrimp you out of any of the emotions or any of the feeling, if that makes sense.
Yes.
But it goes boom to boom to boom, and then we're there, and this scene happens, and now, wow, okay, he's just gone completely all out. He's desperate for this fire, and at this point, I do not think for one jot he wants that fire to go, oh yeah, well, we can all have fire. What a happy community, other than just, well, I've got fire. Aren't I great?
Yeah, and he's one of the very few completely evil villains in Doctor Who.
Yeah.
To the extent, it's not really... When you think of a villain, you think of someone like the Master who can make you laugh and also commit evil deeds that make you forget, trouble you at the fact that you were laughing. This is a character that is just purely evil, with evil intentions, who does evil deeds, who had no redeemable features, and that is again another reason why this is so bleak. Even the villain isn't entertaining. He is just, oh my god.
Would you say he's scary though? That's an interesting point, and I was going to say this. We said about it, kids show. It's a very frightening episode. You would not see a man with blood all over his chest at 5:15 in 2016 on BBC One.
Very true.
Did it scare you? And whether that may be the visuals, like the plastic hog, or the feeling of it.
I think it more just troubled me. I think for
Okay.
kids, some bits would scare you. Like when you hear just that much screaming. When you hear the screams and then a man's covered with blood on his chest as a kid, you're like, no. But in general, it's more just the constant having all life force being sucked out of you. I describe it as, it's probably what being attacked by dementia feels like sitting through that episode. But don't get me wrong, I did enjoy it, but Yeah, I think for kids it's more just the bleakness rather than scary. There's men jumping out of everywhere.
Yeah, it's not nice, and we keep saying it's not a nice watch. But when we say something is not a nice watch, it doesn't mean it's a bad watch.
Correct.
Lots of times, the best forms of media are when you sit through it and you come out at the end and go, "Wow, that was grim," but I feel, and you feel bad about saying you enjoyed it. You know?
Yeah, that's absolutely. And it's the third episode in of this four-part, so we need to see the characters in trouble, and they're in an environment that isn't funny.
Yeah.
It's good. It's understandable writing that's executed very well. It makes sense that the episode is like that. I'm glad it was.
That's very true. And what about the actual you mentioned about Zar's big sort of moment where he's got blood covered around his chest. That scream and the direction of that, I must applaud, because we go from literally a straight shot of her's face screaming, and then to sort of all reactions like, "Oh my god, what's going on?" And then you go and see it, and all we hear is the scream, cut to the scream, and the sounds of all this sort of moaning and warbling, and of course the sounds of the animal. And I must say, the reason why I thought this episode worked so well and was so tense is the sound design.
Yeah.
The jungle always has this sort of feeling to it. The sounds are all quite loud. The way they're all always looking around, like, "Oh, what was that in that bush?" It feels alive. It feels real. And it always reminds me of somebody who reviewed the Cavemen Part episodes and said Doctor Who has never felt more real in the fact that, and I've wrote this here, look how mucky, look how dirty all the characters get. When in the future, it's sort of, I don't know, let's just say like the Matt Smith era. They'll go to a planet, they'll come off, and they'll be clean as day.
Yeah. There's examples of that are when they go into sort of like the Charles Dickens era and they say it smells, yeah, but like, eras like that, or even the medieval periods, these are places where the streets were covered in just literal shit, but they just come out clean as a whistle. It doesn't make sense.
Whereas this, it is a grim reality to it. The sounds are ever present. You mentioned the percussion, which is still there, and it's just, when I say it's not a pleasant watch, it's in a good way. You are listening in. You're intent.
Yeah, it's simple but effective.
Yeah, and that's the key. But no, the sound design of all the sort of creatures in the and we never see anything other than I have joked about so far, a hog's head, which I must admit, the shots where we keep coming back to that, I'm like, and they scream at it, and they're like, "Oh, it must have been totally killed." It's like, that's one moment I think the beat kind of misses, if that makes sense. And not due to the prop, just because I don't see the point in it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I other than suggesting how much danger they could be in, this animal that managed to kill a boar was bursting into absolute tears. Maybe Barbara burst into such tears because it shows how her mental state has deteriorated so rapidly. I think you could see points in it, but having to sit there and literally watch a plastic boar's head that everyone's crying over is a bit much.
I don't think, once again, I don't think it's the effect, because I will never stand here and go, and on this show probably will not say, "Oh, it's terrible because the effects are rubbish." No, we're not here to do that, because if you're going to say the effects are rubbish, then you might as well watch a different show.
Yeah, that's fair.
And it's not about the effects, and I don't think it looks too bad. I'm just exaggerating for comic potential at the moment. But I would have preferred it, because if we'd have cut that scene, and this is why this episode for me is probably the weakest so far, because there are little moments in there. It's still brilliantly written. It's still superbly written, but there's little moments that if I were making it, I would just excise. And that moment is one of them, because when we see it later, and we know we've already had that scene where they go, "Oh, was there something in the bush?" and that was frightening. We never see it, and the Doctor's like, "Oh, I don't believe in shadows." That's the sort of pragmatic Doctor that we'll come to know and well love as well. It's a bit of character, but it also sets up something's in there with them. You've got all the noises, and then later, if we just have the scene where you hear all the sounds of the animals screaming, shouting, and it's roaring, biting into Zar, and they're fighting, and you don't see it, we just hear the sounds. I think just hearing the sounds would be more effective rather than going, "Look at that hog, if it can do that, what could it," you get that point from just the sound alone. It's somewhat more visceral to get to my point.
Yeah.
And that's I kind of agree with that. What do you think about Barbara in this episode? Because I would say the focus here is very much Ian and Barbara.
Yeah, she's very compassionate again. She's in a much more panic state than we've ever seen.
Which I don't think you ever see again, do we?
No, not really. She's more of a, especially when you've got Susan who just screams at everything. Like in this episode, a bush rustles and she screams. It's like, oh, come on.
Yeah.
But Barbara, at least it's been built up to. And at this point, she's very traumatized, and you feel very, very sorry for her.
It feels, once again, to get back to that point, it feels nasty watching somebody go through this total mental breakdown, and she says as well, like, what's happened to us? And Ian has to sort of hold her. And it's a really touching scene. Once again, all the scenes where it's two people in this, sort of talking head on head in a really emotional thing, the emotions pouring out of everybody. And it's shot in lovely close up with Ian holding Barbara's head, like, it's okay, we're going to get out. Look, just think, we've got out the cave, now we can get back. It is people struggling to understand. They don't know what's going on. This is a whole new world for them. Barbara's like, who knows? Barbara could die. She could think, in all intents and purposes, that something's going to happen. They're going to die. And once again, you said it. You said it every week. This is the Doctor Who where you feel like people could die.
Yeah, and that's what keeps you going, I think, with it.
Go on.
It's so grim, but you invest in these characters, so you are there. It's hard to watch. You're kind of there thinking, oh, are they? Are they? Are they? Are they? All the time, which I think the show loses after a while.
Yeah, I mean, you can't have tension with no... And this is the key. You can't have... And this is my problem with lots of films these days. You can't have tension with no character.
Yeah.
Because if you just have tension without character, why are we invested in the tension? And yet, here, we have Barbara pouring her heart out. And it's a brilliant performance. I was going to say, acting-wise, I think she's probably one... This is amazing.
Yeah, she's very convincing, despite... doing the classic Doctor Who screaming all the time. But...
Yeah, I will address this here. But I do not have a problems with companions screaming when you have to sit there and think and go, hang on, if I was in this situation, I'd be a bubbling wreck too. And this is one where you can definitely get behind that, I think.
Yes, you can.
Whereas probably another one where I'd say, and this is a completely different point, but I might as well move on to it. I think the direction in this episode is a little bit weaker.
Yeah, well, there aren't as many. I don't think the director is as strong at the whole chase scene aspects of the show as he is with the set pieces. Like when in the last episode, when the Doctor is in a sort of courtroom-esque.
Yeah. What Warris is saying, the director, he's very good at, as I said, and I said this, the close-ups, the character moments. There's also a lovely one early on where the old mother, when she's just picked up the knife and it lingers on her face for a while, and the lighting of her face there in that cave, she looks like shameful, terrified, and just like, yep, I'm going to do this. It's a really brilliant shot. All the close-ups in this are really amazing. But then there's moments where you can tell, and it is because it's 60s television, but there's moments where you are just taken out of it for a moment because some things just don't add up. For example, Susan screams when she's in the Cave of Skulls, and it takes a good couple of seconds before we see what she screams at and the old mother walks in.
Yeah.
Because she has to kick through all the leaves and stuff. That's not the director's fault. That's everything on the floor. It's all recorded as live. But it's little things like that which just add up. And lots of... He keeps as well... We see a lot of shots in this episode looking through things. Like we see at the start, we look through a rock into the Cave of Skulls. There's... When Tsar knocks the old woman to the floor, we pan down and see her body through a sort of gap in a rock, if you recall that moment.
Yeah.
All this stuff is all really nice. It's all trying to give you a feel for the world and give some dynamism to it, which we said from day one. These, especially on Earthly Child Part 1, there's a dynamism to it. It's always constantly moving. There's no just boring shots of four people lined up like they're on a stage.
Yes, exactly.
And it's... But here, it's occasional beats, like I mentioned that Susan one. She screams, and then she comes in 5 seconds later. It's occasional beats that are off. Okay, the whole panning down to show us things sometimes doesn't quite work, and I think I agree with you about the shooting of the chase scenes.
Yeah, they were a bit clunky. Like you see one running, then the next running, and the next person. The fact that it methodically goes through all four just for one quick bit of chase. That was my issue with that shot. And also, I felt the lingering in the forest took a bit too long. The middle was very slow for this episode. It starts off... Yeah, I think so. All of the business in the forest until they discovered the cow. It was kind of like, yeah, I get you're frightened, but this is going on for too long.
Okay, that's a very interesting point. Because I believe, do you remember last week I told you I gave this
No,
episode.
I meant Zar. I meant Zar coming in, and Cal later on.
There we go. There we go. We've elaborated. Do you remember last week when I said I gave this episode a 9 out of 10 when I first reviewed it?
Yes.
Now, when watching this, I would not do that now. I mean, hold to the end for our scores. But watching it, I kind of saw why. Because I didn't expect Doctor Who to be this grim. And the reason why I think I used to like it, and it's a bit I think about it, is that central section in the woods where it is really tense. You've got the drum beat, you've got all the sound effects. I like as well, which, and I'm going to give a bit of context here, just to show, you mentioned about the shots of them running being quite boring.
Yes.
Do you know how they achieved those shots?
Go on.
Because, of course, in these days they didn't have Steadicam, and this is a bit of TV history for you folks. Basically, cameras, of course, they were always constantly on tripods. So you to like have a shot of the floor, you had to properly tilt the camera, and you couldn't really do that because they're so heavy, and you couldn't really tilt them properly. So you had to attach a periscope to the bottom of the camera, shoot, like say, and if you want a shot of the floor and like feet on the floor, shoot through the periscope, through the mirror of the periscope to get it onto the camera lens. And it's things like that, ingenuity, and I think that's why I say the direction is still dynamic. It just halts the floor a bit at a few moments. I wish there was more, I don't know what you feel, I wish there was a couple more, just in some scenes, like, you know, where they are just all sitting there in a forest, just a few more close-ups, you know what I mean?
I don't know if close-ups would have helped. It's just too much of, there's too much. Oh, we're afraid.
Okay, so you think they should have cut to the chase a bit more?
I think they should have got to the TARDIS a bit sooner, or at least cut to Cal a bit sooner, or Zar came in and got attacked a little bit sooner.
Okay, are you saying, and this is one thing I've actually put here, there's a lot of longers in this episode, like moments where we see the old mother walking to go to the Cave of Skulls. That doesn't really need to be there, does it?
That one I prefer, though. I like it because you're kind of like, what's she up to? And that's important because Zar needs to see her. Well, Zar's wife needs to see her.
Okay. I thought, would it be better if we see her at the start, pick up the knife, we see that great shot of her face. I can't say how much as a TV student, just like that, the lighting and that is brilliant. and then going on, and then we have them in the Cave of Skulls. Susan screams, what is it? Oh my god, it's the old mother. And because you've seen her pick up the knife before, you think she's going to kill. Like, I didn't get all the stuff where she's walking around, trying to open it, stuff like that. I don't know.
Yeah, you got me there. I'll be honest.
It's nice build-up, it's nicely shot, with the music as well underneath is very good, but I'm like, and that's what I mean by longers, and this is why this episode goes off a bit for me, because...
That wasn't a bit I had an issue with, though.
Was it not? What specifically about the forest scenes? Because I'll defend them, I'm going to say.
Okay, specifically, it's just after, it's from just after the Doctor is too weary to keep running, up until the bit where Zar is attacked.
Okay.
I just think it's not very long.
No, once again, it's 25 minutes, but we're talking about, once again, we said this economy, it's all about structure. We analyse this like idiots, I think.
Yeah, and I think this is a bit that it wasn't great economy of writing the entire time. You're sat there watching them be out of breath and be pissed off and miserable and scared just for a slight tinge too long.
Okay, I can agree with your point.
Thanks.
I'm looking at my note. Is there anything you specifically want to say on your notes? And I'll go to mine because I'm looking through mine now.
I've covered pretty much everything I need to say.
Okay. What one line I'm very happy with, and I think it's a really good live. And I mentioned it earlier. I want to elaborate on this, but the female to Zar, his sort of female counterpart, shall we say?
Yeah.
She has the line, "Leaders are awake while others sleep."
Yeah.
That
really riled him up.
Yeah, and that really riled him up. And I wanted to say about this, you put forward the argument at the very start of this episode that the episode is potentially sexist, and then I said, and debunked this, each of the female characters is arguably more powerful and has more impact on the story than the male.
Yes.
And that line there, I think, is one that very much shows it. Her, so far, we've just seen her as sort of, in episode 2, we didn't see her much, she was sort of like the trophy wife, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know, yeah.
Whereas here, she's the one who protects him, who helps him, and is sort of his aide. They're sort of like a sort of double act in there, let's get the fire now.
She's a much stronger character in this, but I'd argue she's a much stronger character in this in terms of dominance and in terms of the ability to convince than Barbara is.
Oh, go on.
The only moment in which Barbara does any convincing is when she's breaking down and insisting we have to help, which I think is brilliant. I'm glad that she does that.
Yeah.
But I would describe Tsar's wife as a lot more manipulative and clever with the way that it's done.
Oh, okay.
One was just pure human compassion. The other one was manipulation.
But is she a villain? Is she wrong for doing that, or is it merely I'm protecting and helping my husband? Which is why I quite like her by the end of it.
It makes complete sense from her perspective. I get that, but I don't know. There's just something a bit more. I liked what she did. I thought it was more impressive.
Yeah. I quite like that because we're in episode 2. We didn't really talk about her other than the fact that there's all that stuff about jealousy, and it's brought up here. Ian's like, "Oh, don't worry, she's just jealous of Susan."
Yeah.
And that's interesting because it is, and this is what it's all about. It's sort of caveman story. All the emotions are base and simple. They are the most basic. Like, oh, there's another female there. Oh, he's gonna like get the man. So, oh, well, gel.
Yeah, but I don't know how true that is. Was she jealous?
Yeah, Ian's saying that. I don't know. She didn't really show it. She just sort of jumped over him and protected him. I wouldn't say it was jealousy more.
She does say, "He is mine."
Yeah, it is. It was a simple way like that, and maybe that's why she protects him. It is a protecting, as in like, no, she's mine, like an animal, as it were. So is the Doctor wrong for calling them savages? It's an animalistic protect one's own, but then it's also human. So where do we stand?
Yeah, that's fair.
It is really, and that's what I mean about this, and that's what I do like about this story. And so far, our negatives have been very minor compared to the positive. It's real. The reality. I believe these people are cavemen.
Yes, there's no doubt about that. It's acted and written so well. I agree with you.
Yeah, it is there's a rawness to it. And even if sometimes you do have dramatic sort of bits in there that are just for drama. Another point, if we go back to direction, in the same scene as that line I mentioned, Tsar talks straight to camera.
Yes.
And there's a couple of moments like this, and I said it's almost sort of Shakespearean. Some of the lines, some of the sort of more clipped yet poetic lines in this.
It is. It doesn't really fit the tone, though.
Yeah, and this is another point, I would say. Do you think that breaks it up? Because I watched it, and he sort of just turns to camera to go, I will get the fight. He's just like basically saying his intent. And I'm like, we got that from the scene. And we just had that lovely display of care and conviction and manipulation from her. And then he just says this to camera. Do you think it fits? Because I don't mind it. I think, yeah, I can get behind it.
I'm a massive fan of that style of direction. That's my jam in theatre stuff. Which is why it pains me to have to say, yeah, but it doesn't really work here. It doesn't fit it because that's not the style that the episode was going for. Don't just slot in one line where someone talks to the camera.
I'd say it breaks up the reality of it, doesn't it?
A little bit, yeah.
But it didn't bother me though. It didn't make me sit there and just go, I'm totally out of it now. You know?
No, if you hadn't mentioned it, I don't think I'd have brought it up as a major issue. But
okay. Oh, sorry. It might affect the score.
It might do now, Ryan.
And yeah, there's moments like that. And there's also I mentioned the whole screaming and then coming to the cave a bit late. There's also the bit which is very 60s Doctor Who. It's also 60s direction, and there's two big moments in here which I'd say leads me to once again say the direction's a bit weaker, but I can't help it because it's the time, it's the constraints, and I'm sure they would have done better if they had the ability. But it is still wonderfully directed. But it's the bit at the start where when holding up the rock and the title cards have to come up over the rock, and she stands there holding the rock for a good, it must be about, I don't know, 60, 70 seconds as the title cards come up.
That is just constraint. I think that's unfair.
I know that's unfair. I'm not criticising it. I'm not going to say, oh, it's terrible because of that. But it almost breaks you out of the world because they come up and go, oh, the Forest of Fear, and then back to it. It's like an advert break interlude. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I was into it, and then that happened. And I know Doctor Who always does this in the 1960s, but I just like to make a point. This is the first time where I've explicitly noticed it.
That's a good question.
This is the first time I've noticed it and gone, oh, it is like a pause in the sort of story, and then back to it.
I've noticed it before, but you just have to get on with it.
Yeah, it's not an issue. This is ultimately nitpicking to say, oh, I don't like it that they have to have episode title. Bugger off. It's not. I'm not complaining. It's just that this is the first time I've gone. Oh, they literally just pause the story and go, The Forest of Fear, by da da da, and then back to the story. I kind of like that in a way. Actually, when I think about it like that, like a little interlude to go, this is it. It's the Forest of Fear. Oh, she's holding it. It's like a new series pre-title sequence.
It is, yeah. It's nice.
Yeah, so actually, I've started off with that going, oh, it's this very 60s thing, and then gone, but it's a good thing. It's like a pre-title sequence conventionally. And now we're going to come to the bit of the show that we know you've all been waiting for.
Oh, yeah.
It's time to talk about dem lovely cliffhangers.
Oh, yes.
So, Josh, what did you think of this week's cliffhanger?
I really liked it, even though it's like, how did they get there so quickly?
Now, I was going to say, I was taken out of it a bit by the final shot of the programme.
Really? Why?
Because Ian says, quick, come on, get away! And it's a big close-up of him, always looking past the camera. And if it had been that, and then they run away, and then we cut to the shot of, all the K-men getting up in front of the TARDIS, that they're sort of there and they're all surrounding the TARDIS. You remember that shot?
Yes.
It's a really lovely shot, and you've had Ian run away, and the sweat's literally dripping down his face, his hair's all messed up, it looks great. If you'd have faded it out after that, I would have liked that. Like, we gotta go, the K-men are here. Boom, out. It begins
the ominous stare though from Cal. Doesn't that not just make you go ah?
Yeah, it does. It is scary. It is creepy as heck, and it literally is a big bum 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 bum, big close up. There we go. But it is just the whole episode for me is about tension. This one, it's all about the chase, and it's about the emotions affecting that big chase. It's like a big. To describe it in how a modern stupid Radio Times poster would. It's a roller coaster ride. Am I allowed to do that?
Yeah, you can.
It is. Boom, boom, boom. We keep going. It's, oh God, how are we going to get out? Oh no, he's hurt. Oh, do we help him? It is really engaging. And I'd liked if the cliffhanger would be the continuation of that chase to go, are they going to get out? They've got they've still got so much more to face, and end it on that rather than pausing the drama, as it were, to go, and Cal's pissed.
I think it's less meant to be that and more Cal is because we know how evil Cal is now.
Yeah.
Maybe this is a thing more for younger viewers. It's quite an accessible and engaging way to end it. But a shot of Cal's face reminds us of the real danger that they're in.
Okay, go on.
He's the cause of the danger, and if you have a close-up on his face, I think that has a bit more panic than, oh my God, generic cavemen have popped out. If this was a video game, it would have been the equivalent of getting to the big boss as opposed to just fighting all of the henchmen.
You know what? I really like that. I came here and that was my big point to go, oh, the cliffhanger could have been done better, but you know what? You've totally convinced me.
Yes, fam.
We've done a lot of that this week. Wow. But no,
Yeah.
I see what you mean, because I wasn't thinking of we've just had all this development for Cal. But we have, haven't we? We just had all the scene where we go, he's a right idiot, he is horrid, and then, oh no, and he's hit. Because actually, yeah, what is he going to do to them? He looks, he could eat Ian's guts for garters. It's wow. Okay, well, fair enough. You've convinced me. I don't know. Maybe they hold on his face a bit too long. I'm not sure. But I agree with you. I stand corrected. Is there anything else before we move on to our final sort of thing about anything else you'd like to say about the episode?
Maybe I missed this. In
Go on.
episode 2, when was it referred to as the TARDIS? Or was it referred to the first time in this episode?
You see, I think this is the first episode they refer to it as the TARDIS rather than the ship.
But it's just thrown in there. It's just, literally, the Doctor just throws it in there, no explanation.
Well, no, because, of course, they know it's the TARDIS because Susan described it in episode 1.
Yeah.
And then they say it, and it's a big moment. And I also say, that's really interesting.
How well would you have remembered that, though, 2 episodes later? If you've never heard of it before. This is the first time you've ever watched Doctor Who.
The Doctor says it, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does, but how well would you have remembered? What I'm saying is, hearing him mention it in episode 3, he goes, we need to get back to the TARDIS.
Yeah, but they kind of know, but they know what it is, don't they? The whole episode 2 was like, oh God, we're never going to get back to the ship now. So they kind of know it's establishing it. If you don't start establishing it, they're never going to know. They'll be still calling it the ship to this day.
I'd have been fine with that.
Would you? Would you?
No.
No, I don't see a problem in that. But yeah, tell us actually. Yeah, tell us. Is this the first time they mention the word TARDIS outside of when Susan explains it? Because I don't.
I think so. I can't remember it being mentioned before.
You could be right. Also, this is also another big moment in Doctor Who history. Are you ready for this?
Go on.
It is the first instance of hundreds more to come of heavy polystyrene acting.
Do explain what you mean by heavy polystyrene acting.
When the rock in front of the cave of skulls, which has to be opened, has to be given a lot of over-the-top facial expressions from Tsar to make it look like this is really heavy, which becomes a staple of Doctor Who, where polystyrene will fall on someone. Warriors of the Deep, an example is like Tegan's like, I can't move. There's a polystyrene door on me. There's loads of it. I mean, this is the first instance, and I watched it and I was like, oh, can't he's giving it some, but I think we're gonna have a competition whenever an event like this happens. I've got to say, I'm only giving Tsar a 5 out of 10 for his polystyrene door acting.
It wasn't as bad as some of the polystyrene acting we are going to see, though.
It isn't. It's good. I didn't mind it. It didn't take me out. I was just like, oh, there we go, and that's the first instance of Doctor Who polystyrene acting. So it's a big moment.
Oh, there's more to come. Can't wait.
I can't wait. I'm just shocked that I mentioned Warriors of the Deep. Surely that sends us all out in shivers.
I don't know what you mean.
We'll see. This episode is looking at all my points. It's just about the blood, the mess. Oh, did you also notice William Hartnell's hair?
Yeah.
It's almost like he's got some sort of like Maybelline advert going on with hair like that. Nice and wavy down his back. And I do love how messy everyone is. It's just that sort of thing. It's real. It's the reality of it. And I'm looking through now and trying to think, what is my favourite moment? So, Josh, would you like to polish off this podcast by saying your favourite moment of The Forest of Fear? And I know it's probably the title, because I know how much you love that.
No. Forest of Fear, I think, is a really lazy title. It sounds a bit pathetic, but at the time, maybe it was like, oh, Forest of Fear.
It's very B-movie, and I think a title like that is what you need for the kids.
Yeah, I guess. Because, for a kid, I guess you hear that, oh my God, Mum, it's Forest of Fear next week. I can't believe it.
Whereas, we're going to get some more odd and visceral titles as we go on. But no, The Forest of Fear I'm fine with it as a title. And also considering fear is the key word in this episode, I'd probably say this is where Doctor Who, before we go on, just to say this as a point, this is where Doctor Who becomes the whole thing about, hide behind the sofa. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
This is where Doctor Who becomes properly scary. It has been alien and weird so far, but this is the moment where it becomes visceral and frightening. I'd say this is where it becomes behind the sofa, so I don't mind the insertion of fear into the title. It's quite apt.
I'll give you that.
Boom. Anyway,
yes,
the moment of the week, Josh.
I always try and find like a quirky moment that just makes me remember why Doctor Who is different to other stuff. Today was in the cliffhanger, which was the sheer... just how quickly all of the cavemen got there to the TARDIS. When we've been following Ian and Barbara and everyone, massive long slog through the forest. We have a shot of Cal going, we have to find them. And suddenly they're just at the TARDIS. Boom. And I just thought, that's ridiculous. But I love it anyway. And that was my favourite moment.
Any particular why? Just because of the sheer ridiculousness of it?
Because of how grim the episode was, I think that was the closest thing to comedy I was able to find.
Okay, so were you looking at it to try and find some humour in it?
Yeah. That really shows you how grim it is. Is that the only bit that is even remotely funny is the suspension of disbelief of how quickly the caveman got there.
It is odd, isn't it? You know what? I'm really torn for a moment on this one, because it is all really one big scene, isn't it?
Yeah.
It all flows into the next and then flows from... I was going to go with the Cal killing the old mother scene, but I thought that is just simply... It's a great plot development, well shot, well directed, but... when I think of what I love about Doctor Who, I don't think something that horrible.
No.
So I'm going to go for the scene where it is just a close-up in the forest, between Ian and Barbara talking, and he's holding her head. I mentioned it before, being like, "Don't worry, we can get out of this." And she says, "What's happening to us?" It's kind of the realization now, and Barbara's character in this is great because she goes from, as I said at the start, loving it all, being a bit more accepting, and now she's like, actually, it can be a bit horrible.
Yeah.
But there's still the comfort there behind it of Ian being really quite nice. And come on, you've got to ship those two.
Of course I do.
Like, no, just he's there holding her face, like, come on, Barbara, we can do it. This is shipping before shipping was cool, and this is what I've got to say. The whole thing, we'll talk about this more because it gets much more prominent, the whole thing about Ian and Barbara liking each other more than merely friends. And I think this is the first kind of instance of that, and showing how their travels have brought them closer together.
Yeah, and their relationship's a very nice one. There aren't many companions you get that with.
No, I think this is truly lovely, and it's a lovely, lovely scene. And it's only fair that I think I pick a scene with Ian and Barbara because it's kind of... They're the two driving forces of it. The Doctor's being a dick. Susan doesn't really do much, does she?
She very rarely speaks, never mind. She's just sort of there because she's there in the story.
She sort of comforts the Doctor a few times, but other than that...
the most forgettable part of that entire episode. Which is a shame. But
because we've said this in episode 1, it's really a shame, I think, when I look back to that review, we kind of prefaced it by saying, Susan's amazing in this. Shame she won't be like that anymore.
Yeah, which is absolutely true, unfortunately.
I think she's gonna have some good moments in the future. I just think she'll never... These two last episodes, we've seen very little of her.
Yeah.
It's a shame. But no, it is Ian and Barbara mostly. And the Doctor. And I want to take this time out to say... Because when I was watching it, and I know lots of people sort of don't rate... The idiots who don't know Doctor Who, don't really rate William Hartnell's performance. They just kind of go, well, he was the first, you know. They hadn't grasped the character yet. But I think his performance in this, whether it may be frightening, whether it may be terrifying, I think it is pitch perfect, and I think he deserves all the kudos for it he can get.
I agree, yeah. And for the first time, it's a very... Yes, it's the first, but also that takes a challenge to play a character no one has ever seen before. And
Exactly.
playing a dickish version of a children's hero.
Yeah.
I'm absolute, fair play to him.
I thought he was great in this. And also one point I failed to make, but once again it's about camera. We mentioned blocking last week, didn't we?
Yes.
All the scenes where they are helping Tsar, who's hurt, and I can't believe I've not mentioned this when we were talking about it earlier, but the Doctor is at the very edge of frame, and he's also standing up when everyone is crouched around him. It's little things like that just add a bit of character, like, oh, I'm not getting dirty, I'm just going to stand here and watch, and he's always very distant from it. It's all very well. So, I just little things like that. It's well acted. It's brilliantly acted. The directing takes a bit of a step down, but it's still competent. It still gets across the emotion. It's raw and it is bloody grim. So that's if I had to sum up the episode in a few words, that's what I'd say. What would you say, Josh?
I agree with that, and I'm curious as to what the rating is going to be.
Go on. I'm going to ask you first, because we've gone 10 each for Unearthly Child, and then 8 for the Cave of Skulls. What are you giving the Forest of Fear?
I'm also going to give this one an 8.
Are you giving it an 8?
Yeah.
I am going to give it a 7.
Why?
Because, as I mentioned, there's a few longers that didn't need to be there. Lots of things that kind of just filled up the space and gave it a bit of air. The characters were all nice. The writing was all very good. It all progressed along nicely. But it feels a bit airy. There's a bit too much space between stuff. And when you're trying to do a really tense chasing episode, it was effective and it got me, but it could have just had a bit more oomph to it. You know what I mean? I can't really describe it.
I get what you mean, but for me, there was only one part of the episode that did that. I just didn't think it was enough to detract that much from the episode.
I don't know. All the stuff with the old woman, some of the inconsistencies in directing wise, and things taking longer to appear and things like that. The hog thing, I don't think needed to be there and held up the episode by a good minute. It shouldn't. I felt you could have cut that out and you would have been perfectly fine. And the cliffhanger, I must admit, the zoom in on Tsar. Cal. I see what it's there for, but maybe it is 'cause it's just so grim. But I don't know. Why are you giving it an 8?
Because I think it was a massive risk to make it that grim. And I was engaged a lot more in that than I was in parts, admittedly, of the last episode.
Okay, that's very interesting.
I'd have
Um,
given it a 9 if it hadn't been for that middle bit and the fact that you kind of have to admit it's not very Doctor Who to see it like this.
yeah.
And also I'm really ready to get out of the Stone Age. I'm getting a bit bored of that setting now.
Are you?
Yeah.
Well, I feel like we know the characters now, if that makes sense. We're kind of just waiting for what's going to happen next week, aren't we?
Yeah.
We kind of know what's going to happen now. They want the fire, but they want the fire too. There's going to come to some sort of loggerheads because they're both strong-willed leaders, blah, 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 blah. We've known this since episode 2.
Exactly.
So do you see what I mean about being a bit airy? But there's nothing wrong with that, and a 7's still a reputable score. You're trying to make me... You're making me feel like changing it to an 8, because, yeah, well, I do think it's risk. It's a big, big risk. Some things just take it out. And as I said, originally I gave this episode a 9, because I was kind of overwhelmed. And I think that's why I was so nice to it. I was overwhelmed by how grim it was and how it was pushing the boundaries. I was like, wow, I didn't expect that. But thinking about it critically, there's just a couple of niggles in the episode that I'll go, maybe not. So I am going to for the first week we have a differentiation in scores. I'm going to give The Forest of Fear a 7 out of 10, and Josh
8 out of 10.
Ooh, well, I quite enjoyed discussing that.
Yeah.
And you have made me. I am doubting my score because some of the things you said, like about the cliffhanger. I'm like, yeah, you do need stuff in that. It is perfect kids to go, oh look, he's the villain. Oh my god, and like the boss in a game. It's all very compelling, Josh. But I'm afraid for this week, I am keeping my score.
Thank you for that justification.
Anyway, this has been week 3 of Doctor Who. What are you looking forward to see in the future?
The next episode.
Specifically, what do you want to happen? Because it's our final part.
I want to get out of the Stone Age.
But we're not hating on it. We're not going that's a bad thing. It's just I think we need...
I don't think I can put that in a more positive way. I'm just ready to see what worlds they're going to travel to next. We have this time machine, and it has the ability to travel through time and space. I think there's a lot of potential that is yet to be explored.
Of course, we are 3 episodes in, and we will see you next week for an episode titled The Firemaker. So I wonder what happens there.
Ooh.
I wonder. Anyway, that's. I'm going to say goodbye from me.
Goodbye from me.
Take care.